Hi, my name is Jake McSheffrey. I'm the Business Projects Manager at Project Solutions, and today I'm going to be sharing some perspectives and ideologies regarding resiliency. Now, there's a lot of information about resiliency out there and available to you, so I don't want to just throw out a bunch of cliches about being resilient. Instead, I want to explore and discuss a deeper aspect of emotions and how we as humans specifically react to events. Let's begin with defining the term resiliency. The ability to recover from or adjust easily to adversity or change. What's important to note about this definition is that the recovering or adjusting is actually the final product of resiliency. But where do you start? Resiliency truly begins before the recovery. It begins with our perception and reaction to adversity. It's important to understand that we cannot control external factors or the things that generally cause us to react negatively. However, both perception and reaction are completely within our control, and how we perceive events dictates how we react. For example, when someone cuts you off in traffic, your first response is typically anger. And while this is an entirely normal reaction, it's usually not one that we are consciously choosing. Instead, the emotion instinctually takes control of us. Our goal is to strive to not let an external event control our emotions and general state of being. Between every stimulus and its response is space. It's brief, but with enough room to insert our own philosophy. Use the time to think, examine, and wait for more information, not for first impressions or harmful instincts. You have just enough time to consider how you will perceive and react to an event. Ask yourself if this event or comment is worth taking up more of your valuable time or headspace. If someone makes a comment that irritates you, ask yourself, in what regard do you hold this individual? Do you take the comment into consideration or not? Usually, if it's not an issue of importance, it's a lack of self-control. We never want to make decisions, reactions, or judgments from an emotional state unless we absolutely need to. I had a supervisor in the military always say to me, if bullets aren't flying, then you have time. For all the science and psychologist fanatics out there, this one's for you. When you are exposed to an emotionally charged event, the amygdala in our brain is activated, regulating emotions associated with stress and the fight or flight response. This takes control away from the frontal lobe, which drives sound decision making. The problem is that this is how humans are biologically constructed, so we need to make an active effort to control the process. When we are working against ourselves, we have to practice resiliency every single day. We want to ensure that we are in the right state of mind and that our brain is operating in the correct gear when managing stressful situations. Akrasia is a key term that I like to remember. It's a Greek word defining a state of mind where someone acts against their better judgment through weakness of will. Now, the reason this is important is because it implies that there is a better judgment present, and the individual just forwent using that judgment. Acknowledging and recognizing that there is a better reaction or judgment to a situation is the first critical step. It's demonstrating cognitive discipline. Now, acting on the better judgment is the skill of willpower, which comes next and also requires daily discipline. Stress, failure, and change are the most significant items of contention when it comes to resiliency. So we're going to look at some of the principles backing each of these. At its core, stress is a survival instinct that is triggered when we perceive a threat or danger. It releases adrenaline and it focuses our mind and body to conquer a challenge. It's not meant to be activated by daily insignificant events. Over time, however, stress has evolved to become kind of a knee-jerk reaction, but it can be controlled by understanding what it is and how it works. You can help alleviate stress by asking yourself, is this event worth becoming stressed over? Does it warrant the physical reaction? Is it worth your heart rate increasing and sweat building? Is it worth the nail biting and the actual physical deterioration to your health? And it's worth also noting that not all stress is a bad thing. Acute stress is directive stress that can actually help us overcome a specific challenge. Chronic stress, however, is not helpful and it will cause long-term health issues. I stated earlier that I didn't want to throw a bunch of cliches, but these stress relieving tactics are cliches for a reason, because they actually work. So the first one we're going to look at is exploring new wellness practices. You can try meditation or journaling, improving your diet and fitness, and developing a positive outlook and actively working towards seeing the better side of situations wherever possible. Number 2 is determining the root cause. There may be underlying factors contributing to your stress. You're not trying to put a band-aid on stress, you're trying to cure it. Think of the iceberg metaphor of all the unseen issues that lie just beneath the surface. And here's another way to look at it. Imagine that your stress threshold is 100, meaning that once you reach 100, you're going to have a reaction. Whether that be lashing out or breaking down, there's going to be some sort of negative reaction. Your daily life and stressors may have you operating at an 80% stress threshold, and that has become normal to you. So now that only leaves 20% for additional work, family, and life stress to happen to you before you explode. We need to attack the lingering stress that we have just come to accept as our new normal. Lastly, number 3, building a social support network. This network consists of family, friends, and even colleagues. Most people can identify their support network, but the real key is actually utilizing the network. It's the actual interactions that validate your stress, reframe your perspective, help you laugh, and encourage you. This chart outlines different sources of resilience. Not every person you know is going to fit into every category. You may have an individual in mind that you go to when you specifically need to laugh, but that may be the last person you want to surround yourself if you're struggling with an issue of finding purpose in life. So make sure you're using your network effectively and that you're actually reaching out and leaning on the people that you need to rely on. The next topic is failure. Everybody fails, maybe even today. A person who does not know how to lose will still lose, only more painfully so. We must embrace failure and learn to overcome it. Failing is not always up to us, but being a failure is. So here's how. Number 1, get moving. Exercise is incredibly important in building resilience. Both aerobic and resistance training has been proven to lead to positive self-esteem, which is directly correlated to overcoming obstacles. If we are confident in ourselves, we are confident that we can take on challenges. Number 2, determine what your next step is. Is the situation completely over, or are there remedial actions? Does it make sense to try again, or could you backtrack to a different point? Has anything changed about the situation, or have you gained more experience? Using a logical approach helps remove the emotion of failure and focuses us on a way forward. Lastly, learn and develop. We all have setbacks and shortcomings almost every single day. And these are opportunities to learn and develop. So meet them head on, find the value, and remember to have grace with yourself. Don't be bitter, be better. Change is also inevitable. We get new business, we lose business. We get new jobs, we lose jobs. Houses, technology, family, friends, everything is constantly changing. But we shouldn't fear change, we should embrace it. If you can't control the change, you shouldn't be spending any of your mental or physical resources trying to fight it. Get ahead of it, understand it, and learn to use it to your advantage. Be mindful of the future. So start considering the future by preparing for it, internalizing it, and researching it. Knowing and knowledge brings confidence and reassurance. Find the positives and search for opportunities. So what good can or will come from the change? What new opportunities will open up that would have otherwise been non-existent? The good often balance the bad, but you have to have the cognizance to see it. Confirmation bias is usually attributed as a bad thing, but in reverse, it can be highly effective at actually recognizing the good around us. And lastly, find comfort in your familiar structure. While some things in your life may be changing, you can always implement routines and structure to maintain your foundation and a sense of stability and normalcy. So use the time in a comfortable and familiar environment to consider the changed environment. Resiliency is a constant road of self-improvement. There is no end or finish line. So we are either improving or deteriorating, which is why we always must strive for self-betterment. Mind over body. This is one of the most important facets of human beings, yet not fully practiced. No matter how strong our bodies are, our mind is and always will be stronger. Historically, our society has ignored mental training and conditioning. We don't master our cognitive potential, and we don't incorporate mental training into our lives like we do with physical fitness. Yet it's a powerful mind that allows special forces troops to push past physical limitations. It's the mind that somehow opens up the superhero strength for a mother to lift a car off of her child. What else can we tap into? Let's start with simply changing our mindset. So change our perception of how we react. Let the comments or situations just roll off your shoulders. You're not accepting abuse, you're not weakening your ego, degrading yourself, or ignoring reality. You are choosing how you want to react. You will still have the full gambit of emotions, only now you'll have control over them. Then recognizing opportunities. Like I said before, resiliency is built daily, so you need to have the ability to recognize when to practice it. This is a comment I think to myself many times throughout the day. Usually, I'll be honest, it's dripping in sarcasm, but it's a mental trigger to actually practice some of these principles. It helps me recognize the opportunity for practice and to implement my strategy. So if you can remind yourself to say this to yourself when something frustrating or irritating or angering happens to you, you'll find yourself in a position where you can choose how you'll react. No one is naturally resilient. That's important to understand. People make themselves that way. Not permanently, but anew every minute, every day, every situation. You don't always have to be amazing every single day, but you do need to show up. Just showing up or waking up builds willpower. So in order to build willpower, what we want to do is establish stakes. If you were to work out and eat right 5 days a week, then you're going to be far less inclined to break that habit in the following week because now there's a lot more at stake. Now you actually have something to lose. Your streak, your progress, you would basically be contradicting all your hard work. So there's two very important things to consider here when we establish a daily routine and build these stakes. The first one is that you have to understand your own interpretation of success. I use this baseball example to show how we actually have different interpretations. A good batting average in Major League Baseball is considered 300. Terrific is 350, and unheard of is 400. In fact, Ty Cobb's 366 average is widely considered the best batting average in the history of Major League Baseball. So what do these numbers mean? Batting averages are percentages. That means that the best batter in MLB history failed to hit the ball 63% of the time. What other industry is 37% considered an actually good rating? So it's important to know what your interpretation of success is, what that looks like to you. The second important consideration is that you have to be realistic with your routines and goals. If you're not a naturally fit person, you can't expect to have the same standards as somebody who is. You won't have success if you're trying to work out 5 days a week right from the jump. So you want to challenge yourself, but don't compare yourself to others. You only compare yourself to how far you've come. Next topic I want to discuss is seeking discomfort. So embracing discomfort strengthens resolve and prepares us for future adversity. We spend a great deal of time and energy getting to a comfortable way of life, but it's important to remember strength as well, both physically and mentally. We need to enjoy luxury in moderation because it makes us dependent. The challenges listed here are just some suggestions you can try to challenge your comfort level and build resiliency. These are not things you should be doing every day or even every week. But since we get so used to living comfortably, exposing ourselves to discomfort can actually be a good thing. It was an interesting story I heard about luck. Researchers were looking into if there was any science behind being lucky and why some people seem to be luckier than others. This woman told a story about her struggles to get her book published. She said she went to several publishers but never had any luck. On a return flight, she was sitting next to a complete stranger. Unrelated, she was also trying to push herself out of her comfort zone, and talking to strangers on a plane was definitely outside of her comfort zone. She ended up starting up a conversation, and it turned out that that individual worked for a publishing company. They discussed her book, and the company ended up publishing the book. And everyone told her, all of her friends and family told her, "You're so lucky." But the opportunity only existed because she stepped outside of her comfort zone. The researchers ended up concluding that most people who we consider lucky are only that way because they push themselves to do things that scare them, and that opens up more opportunity for lucky things to happen. So there's a lot to be said for seeking discomfort. You never know what opportunity it will bring. Many of you may have seen this image before, but I think it perfectly sums up this theory of seeking discomfort. Hard times create strong men or societies. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. We want to be hovering back and forth between the first and second panels, where we have the availability and the luxury of good times, but we're constantly reminding ourselves of the strength and resiliency it takes to keep that. This is the last notion I'm going to be discussing today, perseverance. Again, I'm not going to throw out a bunch of cliches about never giving up and keeping your head down and powering through. Instead, I want to highlight two specific concepts. Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius said that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. When we are driven towards a goal and are met with adversity, that obstacle must become our new goal. That is resiliency. So procrastination. Don't procrastinate. I will admit that there is a responsible level of self-actualization where you can put off a task closer to the due date because you're confident in how long it will take you and you're confident in the quality of product that you can produce. But when that's not the case, or life decides to throw a curveball at you, you don't want to fall into the trap of thinking that you can do it in the last minute scenario. Procrastination implies that even though you don't have the willpower to do it now, you're going to have the time and willpower to do it later, which can be dangerous. Speaking of dangerous, the second one, perfection is dangerous. So we can't abandon our pursuit because we despair of not being able to be perfect. Not trying because you're not sure that you can win or not sure that everybody will love it is cowardice. And abandoning a task is not just the enemy of the present, it's the enemy of everything that could come after. Composer and pianist Louis Horst stated, "One cannot always create on the same level. The Sixth Symphony followed the Fifth, but without the Sixth, we could not have had the Seventh." We are always striving for more, and that's the wonderful irony about it all. We should never be content with our progress, but we're always content. With all that being said, here are the key takeaways from this presentation. Recognize opportunities. You can't practice resiliency if you don't give yourself the opportunity to do so. So train your mind to exercise conscious action when faced with adversity. 2. Control your perception and reaction. Your goal should not be to eliminate your emotions, but rather to manage them. Seek out the positive and train your mind to focus on the good and not dwell on the bad. And lastly, practice resiliency daily. Just like physical fitness, if you stop, your hard work will deteriorate and you'll start to revert back to bad habits. I want to thank you for taking the time to participate or listen to this training. I hope you found something useful that you can use to take away and implement into your own daily life. If you want more information or you're interested in additional personal or professional development training, please do not hesitate to reach out to us at any time. Thank you and have a wonderful day.